Hi, I'm Sean.
I'm Rhonda.
We're excited to be with you today. We want to share some information that we have gleaned from Dr. Carolyn Leaf's book, Who Switched Off Your Brain.
So we pulled information about the differences in male and female to kind of understand relationships. So now let's look at the way we process what's going on.
So in this area, men typically under-process. A man has the ability to stop in the middle of an emotionally charged environment and think internally before proceeding, since it can take him up to 7 hours to process emotions. He tends to have the advantage to remain calm and think clearly before becoming affected by his emotions. He needs to remember to return to his emotions later to properly process them to prevent their buildup into toxic thoughts which can explode later. And his wife can help him process emotions he might otherwise push aside.
She, however, tends to over-process her emotions, continuing in them without resolving them properly, resulting in toxic thoughts. She tends to stay on a topic to the point of frustration for a man. A husband can help his wife bring her emotional thoughts to a conclusion.
So you can see here with one under-processing and the other over-processing, it's kind of like, well, do you want your food undercooked or do you want it overcooked?
Do you want to be in this side of the ditch or this side of the road in the ditch?
So we need to find the blend, right, for the perfect cooking, right, of our processing of information.
Goodness, can you see how we balance each other out?
Right.
I think that's amazing. When you've got somebody who will really dig into the processing and someone who can process more at the surface level maybe, or at a given topic, but can maybe pull out a little easier. Can you see how that can balance and help each other?
Yeah. So I think the more we understand the challenges that each, the husband and the wife face in the way that we deal with information, it can help us understand what our spouse is doing when we're talking together.
You know, and I think we women want that emotional connection from our man in the moment. But what if, like we said, it takes up to 7 hours for him to process emotions? What if we're expecting him to be on his feet emotionally? But what if it takes him a little bit longer? Can we give him the space to be able to connect? Now, yes, a man can come up with some upfront words that out of his little bag to pull out, right, and say, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Now, that might not be the deepest of connections, but it does provide for a woman a certain amount of connection. And you can talk together. What would she like to hear when she shares? But at the same time, we don't drag a man through emotions, which is what it can feel like for him, by our talking like we would with another woman. He's not a woman, and we shouldn't treat him like one.
You know, I think realizing too that those, while a man may not immediately be processing the emotions, and it takes him time, they do need to be dealt with, because they can, like stated there, that they can become toxic thoughts later that can lead to an explosion.
Right. And a lot of times what you tend to see is whoever is the under-processor, a lot of times a larger percentage, yes, it's the man. If he doesn't process, it's not that there's not stuff going on. It's unprocessed stuff. And like Sean said, it explodes at some point. So a man can be less verbal until he explodes, and then all of a sudden he can come across as controlling and quite verbal. And so we need to slow things down. Notice that he can stop in the middle of an emotionally charged environment. Now, and think internally. For us women, what does that look like? He went quiet. He withdrew. But what if he didn't? What if he just needs a moment to process? We kind of have a man, or whoever's the external processor has the internal processor at a disadvantage, because we can verbalize on our feet, on our toes, in the moment, right now. But they need us to go quiet so they can think, or they may have to come back later. Let me think about that.
You know, I think just giving our spouse, if it's the man internally processing, and giving her a heads up that, hey, this is what's going on, just so you can know, I'm not disengaged from the conversation, I'm paying attention, but I need time to think through what's taking place. And that can give the other spouse a lot of comfort, knowing that they are thinking about what's being discussed.
Verbalizing can help a lot. How
Yeah.
many people do you interact with and you just go quiet and you don't say anything? You don't treat people that way. It's not considered respectful. It's considered rude, actually, even in the marriage. You know, it's interesting to think that the man has the advantage where he can box off those emotions. It's why he can go to war and why he can fight for his family. However, once he gets in those emotions, he's probably going to have difficulty coming out of that emotion and closing that box, you know, as easily. So it's good for us to keep a feel of a check on the pulse of what's happening in that moment, that we not rev things up, ladies, with our over processing, that we allow him to temper that basically he's allowing her processing. So he's pushing himself, right? She is allowing him also, though, to help her wrap it up and pull out, which requires self-control on her part as well. And so one who under-processes pushes, while the one who over-processes is pulling back a little bit to adjust to something in the middle of the two.
So when we're talking about over-processing, sometimes that can look like, maybe feel like a broken record, right? Something is being repeated, it's being cycled, going, you know, round and round, and it's kind of like that's being repeated. So when a husband notices his wife doing that, he can say, hey, it feels like you are repeating yourself. Do you not feel heard? What do you need to feel that we can bring this to closure?
Yes, and so a man can reflect back to his wife. He can mirror her emotions. It sounds like that's tough for you.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? And this can help her close it.
Yeah.
When he doesn't give anything back, and she knows if it's a topic you're interested in, you're going to interrupt me. You're not going to have any trouble with words. And now it's almost as if you're disinterested, you're disengaged. But so if he gives her a little something back, and a man may need to think through what are some good phrases to say or good sentences to say in that moment that can help her feel heard, help her feel like I made a connection. Because she may dwell in that emotion in hopes that he will join her and make a connection. Now, he doesn't have to feel everything she feels, right? But he can still connect with it, and that can help bring her out. Think of somebody who is stuck in anything. Don't you have to go where they are to help pull them out of it, to help bring them out, to bring closure?
You know, I like that mirroring phrase or that wording because it's really showing that we are receiving the image, right, of our spouse within us and then reflecting it back. And obviously, I think that's what God did when he made man. He said, let us make man in our image to reflect us, to reflect God. In the same way, in the husband-wife relationship, he's wanting us to be reflecting each other, feel what our spouse is feeling. And
I think we both have to be able to go where you are, and you come where I am.
Yeah.
If we're unwilling, because like some men are like, I'm not emotional, and I don't do that. It's like, well, you are married to a woman.
Kind of isolating himself.
Yeah, and so you would do well to embrace her emotional curviness and processing, because you like the physical curves. Do you like the unseen emotional curves that she has? And for her to be touched by his masculinity, you know, by what makes him a man, not just on the outside, but on the inside as well. And it's all about learning to embrace and become one with someone who is not me, and to love what you bring to the table instead of criticizing it. It shouldn't clash, but there needs to be a little adjustment for it to blend.
Well, I think the spiciness of the curves definitely adds the excitement to the relationship. So we can maybe appreciate roller coasters for some things, but you don't want to live on a roller coaster. So maybe there's a place for that. We hope there's some things that you heard in here that can help you apply to your marriage relationship and benefit from it.